Next up, to the more traditional kind of reality TV. If you're anything like me, you know tuning into other people's drama can really help tune out the stresses of our own lives. But lately, we've been seeing less of the standard family hijinks, petty fights, and relationship trouble, and more of our favorite reality stars running into legal trouble instead. In November, we saw Chrisley Knows Best stars Todd and Julie Chrisley sentenced to a combined prison term of 19 years after being convicted of bank fraud and tax evasion. And just this Friday, Real Housewives star from Salt Lake City, Jen Shah, she was sentenced to 6.5 years in prison for wire fraud. Now, to discuss this, I'm joined today by attorney Cesie Alvarez and Angelina Angotti. They are the co-hosts of the Bravo Docket, a bi-weekly podcast examining the legal woes of our favorite reality TV personalities. Angela and Cesie, thank you so much for joining me. Look, I know that some people may think this is frivolous, but the legal trouble that these reality stars have gotten into is serious. First, let's start with Jen Shah. And Cesie, talk to me a little bit, because some of our audience may not be that familiar with the Salt Lake Housewives franchise. Talk a little bit about the series. Who's in it? Who are the players? And why is it so popular?
Sure thing. So Real Housewives of Salt Lake City premiered, I believe, in 2020. And it was the first series in Salt Lake. They hadn't had a new city for a while. The players are those living in Salt Lake, and it's wealthy individuals from a variety of religions, which was actually a little bit surprising. I think most people thought they would be primarily Mormon, but we had Jen Shah, who was a Muslim woman. There were Mormons and ex-Mormons, and it was just a wide range of individuals, and it followed their lives. But I don't think anyone could have predicted that Jen Shah was running a telemarketing scheme behind the scenes that wasn't shown on the show.
So, Angela, break down what these charges were. And, you know, I think that we were all betting around my office that I think Jen could have got 10 years. There were victims to this crime, not that the other crimes that we're going to talk about didn't have victims, but there were elderly people, there were people who were vulnerable, who were victims to her telemarketing scheme. Can you break down what the charges were and what she was accused and convicted of?
Yes, so she was charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud via telemarketing and then conspiracy to commit money laundering. She pled guilty to the wire fraud charge, and then at her sentencing hearing, per the plea agreement, the judge dismissed the money laundering charge. However, it's pretty clear that there was money laundering involved as well, and her co-conspirators pled guilty to that as well. And so it was a wide-ranging telemarketing scheme that covered the entire country, that had millions of dollars in proceeds, that really targeted elderly and vulnerable people.
So we're going to take a little look at the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Here was the trailer for this season that just completed. Let's take a look.
I got played by Stuart Smith. I would not be in this thing at all if it wasn't for Stuart.
Someone that I know was working for Jen, and now he's an informant.
Any comment guilty plea ban? Any comment at all?
Are you going to go to jail for 11 years?
So, Cesie, acknowledging that some of the things on reality TV are scripted, some of the story arcs are scripted, and in fact, some of the people watching this as it happened in real time on the season thought it might have been scripted. This is really a major departure for reality programs to watch her get arrested and then the entire season say she was innocent, and then we find out last Friday she had pled guilty. What was this like for people watching and fans of reality television?
Well, speaking as a fan, I think it's the first time we have seen someone be arrested on The Real Housewives and be able to see the officers coming to arrest her. I think as people who cover the legal issues, it was a unique position because people could tune in to our podcast and see what was actually happening in the pleadings, and know that while she was claiming her innocence on our televisions, she had pled guilty to the charges. So it was a really unique experience. I think as a viewer, it was engaging television. I think we're still engaged right now. She hasn't pled guilty yet on the show, so we're all just waiting for that to happen. Very unique experience, very entertaining, but of course it's at the detriment of victims who were actually harmed.
And Angela, there's some legal peril here. We certainly, for those of us, myself included, who watched the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Erica Jane's legal troubles, which are associated to her husband's legal troubles due to accusations that his law firm and he appropriated funds that were from a settlement, among a mountain of other charges against him, to actually be living a lavish lifestyle on television when you're being accused of stealing, for the most part, money from other people. The legal jeopardy that it must put these people in, I mean, they're already in the legal jeopardy, but, you know, compounding it. I imagine as a lawyer, you wouldn't have been recommending that they continue their day job on any reality television show.
No, I mean, I think it was probably, Cesie and I talked about this, maybe a lawyer's worst nightmare to have a client on a reality show as it's ongoing. And there's been so many instances of that occurring and them making their lives worse for themselves in the courts. For example, the Giudices in New Jersey, the dance moms, Abby Lee from Dance Moms, the Chrisleys, all of those, they had ongoing legal proceedings as their shows were airing. And sometimes even, for example, in Dance Moms, Abby Lee Miller, the federal judge actually watched the show and discovered that there was more income that she hadn't reported. So yeah, lawyer's worst nightmare, probably.
And I know you're talking about the Chrisleys a little bit, which I want to talk about as well. One of the challenges here is that they might want to make the defense that this is not real life. This is reality TV. I'm pretending I have all this money. I don't really have all this money. I'm not living the lifestyle that it seems. But in the Chrisleys case, the amazing part of the fraud that they committed against a bank, including using sort of do-it-yourself bank statements that they cut and pasted with real paper, a real paper cutter, and real glue, and probably real whiteout, which they used to submit as documents to get these multi-million-dollar loans from banks. I mean, Cesie, this is in some ways not the same kind of crime against real people who are vulnerable and elderly. But what do you think is going through their heads when they're on television doing these crimes? Do they really think that they're not going to get caught?
Well, I don't think they think they're going to get caught, and that's the problem. There's a level of narcissism that goes into both committing white-collar crimes and then going on television when you know you committed these crimes. And to say that the Chrisleys' crimes were victimless, I don't think is fair, because they did defraud smaller banks and they defrauded the government. That can go on to us as federal taxpayers. So to say that it's completely victimless, I don't think is fair, but to them, they're just seeing numbers and they're not seeing the people that this affects. So they go on TV thinking, hey, I'm doing nothing wrong. It's not like I've stolen candy from a baby. It's a different form of crime. So I think they feel like they're invincible and they did nothing wrong, but they clearly did.
I want to take a look at a piece from Washington Post opinion writer Nana Ufua-Mumford, who writes, "This level of sordidness is not what viewers are here for. I don't want to see criminals buying Birkin bags and enjoying private flights while their victims are struggling to pay their bills. Bravo has previously removed cast members for infractions such as failing to show up to a reunion or making racist comments, but stealing from widows and orphans, this is bad television." Angela, I disclose I'm an employee at NBC Universal, although I have no involvement at all with Bravo. But, you know, should Bravo and other channels that host these reality shows that end up having people, because people are people and they're going to commit crimes, did Bravo have a responsibility at some point, especially around Jen Shah, to remove her from the show? Or were they doing what we expect to happen in America? She's innocent until proven guilty.
I think they should look at it as a case-by-case basis. With Jen Shaw, I actually think it was incredibly beneficial for everyone to have been watching that. There are still people out there doing these telemarketing schemes, and with all of the attention on it and all of the news media and the awareness that surrounds it now, I think it's actually really going to help additional people from becoming potential victims. They're going to think twice when they get that phone call about work from home. They're going to think twice about that. One of the big things with these scams that makes them so insidious is that they catch people at a weak moment and then they're embarrassed to report it. So the light that was shown on this and then everybody getting a much bigger understanding of how these things work, I think is actually probably a very good thing in the case of Jen Shaw.
Cesie, we talked about the sort of top 3 cases that folks are watching. What else can folks find on the Bravo docket? What other reality stars are in some sort of legal jeopardy?
Well, just about all of them. Just about every show. No, but within the Bravo universe, like Angela mentioned, Teresa and Joe, we've covered. That was probably the biggest parallel to Jen Shaw's in terms of the depth of.
And that's in the New Jersey. Those are the New Jersey housewives.
Real Housewives of New Jersey, correct. We also cover another housewives in the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. That was more for tax issues. There's a lot of New Jersey, unfortunately. There's a lot of bankruptcies that occur in Orange County. And like you mentioned, there's Erica Girardi and Tom Girardi's legal issues in the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and those are still ongoing. So we plan to cover those and anything that happens in those.
And Angela, I should mention, it's not just hot tea you guys are serving on the docket. You're looking at the actual filings. You're reading and explaining to us what the legalese is and what it means. Is it surprising to you that this is a calling that you and Cesie, you're both practicing lawyers, but that there would be so much bounty here for you to help explain the law to people who are watching reality TV and then want to keep up with what's happening to their favorite or not so favorite villains or favorite people on the show?
We've just been so grateful for the opportunity to use our skills and our law degrees. We're both practicing attorneys. And combine that with a topic that we're interested in. I used to be ashamed to admit that I watched reality TV, and now, we have a podcast that a ton of people listen to, and we talk about it all the time. And it's so fantastic to increase legal literacy in this country and do it in an entertaining way. It's so great to teach people about procedure and how sentencing works and all of these things that you don't learn in school otherwise, and that people don't really have access to unless they have a friend that's a lawyer that they can ask. And we're kind of that friend that's a lawyer that also likes reality TV.
Well, I appreciate you both joining me to keep us updated on this. You can find the Bravo Docket wherever you get your podcasts. For more information, you can head over to bravodocket.com. Cesie Alvarez and Angela Angotti, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you
It's
again.
a pleasure.